My son will inherit. His affair baby will receive nothing. My name is Emily, 26, and I have a 5-year-old son. My ex-husband, 29, cheated on me with his coworker, Bethany, 28. I was 2 months pregnant with our second child when I found out. Bethany was going to have his child. I miscarried. My ex left the house to be with her. It's been 2 years since it was born. My mother-in-law has been supportive of me and has had nothing to do with my ex or his mistress and their child, up until a few months ago. I adore my in-laws, and we're extremely close. My mother-in-law and parents are the best of friends. She loves me and her grandson more than anything. This infuriates my ex-husband's affair partner. My in-laws cut contact with them straight away. Bethany was jealous that her child would never know the love of grandparents. At least her son has a father. This brings us to the problem. Unfortunately, my mother-in-law has been very ill for a while, and so she's updated her will. My ex-husband was an only child, so he would get everything. But now, my son will inherit her house, villa, and money. I will receive a large portion of her money and all of her belongings. Until my son turns 18, it will be in my trust. If I pass before that, my parents will take care of it. They don't know this though. The thing is, once they caught wind of her being ill, my ex-husband begged for forgiveness. The mistress started being nice towards her. She started fights and called her horrible names before, and forced her to be around his baby. My mother-in-law is bedbound, but she says she wants to leave with a bang, so she'll endure this. I haven't encouraged her to do anything, and this is her choice alone. They want her money, and her son thinks he's still included in the will. He also thinks his child will now be acknowledged by his grandmother and will also receive money. Now, my mother-in-law hasn't actually said she's forgiven them. She despises her son and his mistress for tearing apart our family. She wants to reward those who deserve it and get revenge in one go. The mistress keeps on hinting on how her child will grow up and attend a great college, etc. Money-involved things whenever she's around my mother-in-law. Actually, mother-in-law's niece, my cousin by marriage, has overheard her on the phone discussing what wallpaper she wants in the dining room when she moves in, and how my mother-in-law has no taste whatsoever. She also mentioned how she'll finally be able to take down pictures of my son when my ex owns the house. Too bad for her, it won't belong to my son. No changes will be made until my son becomes 18. It's his grandmother's home and he should be allowed to cherish it in the way she's decorated it. I'm not really allowed to tell anyone, and though this revenge will be satisfying, I'll have to lose my mother-in-law. It's kind of a win-lose situation, and I dread the day when she'll take her last breath. She's meant a lot to me. I love her. She wants this for her grandson, and has said that she cannot rest until she knows her son and his mistress have been punished. She wants this because her childhood was also ruined because of her father and his affair partner. She wants my son to know he was loved and will always be loved. I hope my son will always value the great women in his life. I wish he had more time with his grandmother. I might make an update if anyone wants it, though I pray to God it's a long time before that. Edit. I thought this post would attract just a handful of people, but wow! Thank you all for listening to me and giving me advice. As for those of you who are angry at me for not asking my mother-in-law to include my ex's new child, I can't do anything about that. Yes, I'm happy, and that's selfish, but I'm going to put myself and my son first. That child contributed to my miscarriage and is one of the reasons why my son has not had a father for over 2 years. I can't change my mother-in-law's mind about him. I do pity the baby, but it's not up to me to fend for it. It's not my responsibility. I've tried talking to my mother-in-law, but she's had her whole childhood ruined because her father made his affair children his top priority. This is why she wants nothing to do with it or her son. And he knows that she's went through so much because of cheaters, yet he decided to do the same to her. He has seen his grandfather favor his aunt and uncle over his mother. And if this happened to you, you wouldn't be so happy sharing yet another thing with the baby. Thank you again to all of those who have listened to me, and I've read out the nice comments to my mother-in-law. We've had a great laugh together. Edit 2. The mistress would send me photos of her ultrasounds after I miscarried, either to me or my family. In the first envelope, she sent a full letter of the nastiest things about me, my son, and my miscarried baby. She'd even tagged me on social media on an account I didn't know about. It was an invitation to her baby shower. She has done plenty of disgusting and hurtful things to me regarding my miscarried baby. The people who are coming at me in the comments would not be as civil as me if anything like that happened to them. Ignoring her child is honestly the best option. I do not want my son to grow up with her son. And to those who are insulting and saying rude things about my dying mother-in-law, you are truly disgusting. This lady's right. If the people trash talking her were in a similar situation, you know they'd be fed up, right? Like, are her actions a little selfish? Yeah. But aren't we all entitled to be a little selfish from time to time? This guy cheated. She miscarried because of the shock that husband was pregnant with another woman, right? Screw that. And then mother-in-law was like, hey, my life was ruined due to cheating. Man, screw that. When was the last time, for those of you consistent on this channel, when was any time where you're like, wow, the cheaters won, thank God? No, screw them. Next story. Story number 2. I broke up with my boyfriend on his birthday for horrible actions he did when he was a teenager. I, 26F at the time, had just started dating Thomas, 28M, and things seemed promising. Very sweet man, educated, and quite smart. Good looks too. After 7 long weeks of dating, he invited me and 2 of his childhood best friends, let's call them Alex and Bart, for a long 29th birthday celebration weekend at his father's country house in a small French town. His father was going to be around as well, and I was very excited to meet everyone. Day 1, Friday, is fun. I am happy to get along well with Thomas's father, a smart and caring man. Day 2, Saturday. After a very nice day, we enjoy a party in the garden with the neighbors, including some friends of Thomas. After a few hours and lots of drinks, a group of people gather around a small campfire and start sharing childhood memories. This is where things go wrong. At first, of course, innocent and dumb stories as you would expect. But then Thomas and his friends started really sharing sick stuff. In particular, they told a story about how when they were 14 or 15 years old, they found it very amusing to bully for almost 6 months Arthur, a boy of their school who was very isolated and shy, making jokes, calling names, you name it. As if this was not enough, they created a fake girl profile on MSN Messenger, which was a computer platform to exchange messages that we used in the early 2000s, and spent months exchanging messages with him under the false girl's identity, flirting, and developing a false relationship with the poor boy. Some people were in the confidence at school, and it became a big and cruel joke behind Arthur's back. They used pictures of Bart's real cousin, and the boy truly thought he had some kind of online girlfriend to whom he sent confessions and love messages. At some point, they got bored and scheduled a false rendezvous IRL, asking the boy to take a bus for 2 or 3 hours, wearing a t-shirt, Elmer the Elephant, based on a private joke. Obviously, there was no one waiting for him, and they didn't know how long he waited there by himself. If Arthur didn't already understand what was going on, he found out the next day at school after Thomas and Bart told the story to everyone, and everyone shared the love messages that Arthur had been writing. That poor boy stopped coming to class and apparently changed schools, and it is easy to imagine that this must have been extremely traumatizing to him. And do you think that Thomas, Alex, and Bart had any bit of shame about it? Not a bit of remorse, in particular on Thomas and Bart's side. They kept making jokes about it, and even seemed to regret that they were not good enough at being evil to convince the boy to send nudes or sexy pictures. I don't even want to imagine what they would have done if he had done so. To say that I felt uncomfortable would be a gross understatement. I was absolutely horrified and started to despise Thomas more than anything. I was not the only one shocked. Thomas's father, who had heard the end of the story, had the most disappointed look in his eyes. His stupid son was so drunk that he didn't even notice it. I escaped the party immediately after that and got back to the house. I could not sleep at all this night, and I kept thinking about the evening and how Thomas was still finding this funny. I heard him coming to bed around 4 a.m., but I pretended I was asleep. Day 3. Sunday was the actual birthday, and the initial plan was that I would take Thomas on a one-on-one fancy surprise date for lunch nearby, and then we would meet the group for a late afternoon party. But instead, I woke up very early on Sunday morning, took all my stuff in silence, and went alone to the train station where I took a direct train heading back to Paris. I decided to send a text to Thomas wishing him happy birthday and telling him to meet me at a certain location 1 hour from the house for a surprise, and that I needed to go a little bit in advance to make sure that everything would be perfect. I had picked the location randomly using Google Maps to gain time. Thomas read the text around 10 a.m. when he woke up. He responded with excitement that he would follow religiously the instructions. When he arrived there at 12:30, I told him to wait further as there was a little delay on something. Then, I asked him to meet me at a restaurant, which was 30 minutes drive from the initial location. When he arrived at 13:15, I texted him I was on my way. would arrive in 20 minutes, and that he will understand when he sees why I made him wait. I also asked him to order some food and the most expensive bottle in the menu. Around 13:30, he started calling me several times and sent a lot of worried texts. And after about 45 minutes, I responded in French. "So how does it feel to have people play with your feelings?" Then I stopped responding. I let him call and text the entire afternoon, but never responded. At some point, an unknown number called me. It was his friend Alex, what was going on, and that Thomas's birthday was completely ruined because of what I did. I just responded, "This is an extremely small payback for what you did to Arthur. Tell Thomas to stop calling me," and hung up. I blocked them too. I still felt bad the entire evening as I started to grow attached to Thomas back then. The following days, a friend called me to say that my reaction was completely absurd and unfair, that it was not my role to punish someone for actions they did as a teenager, and that there were adult ways of saying things, and that I had been completely crazy. Only a few people supported what I did. Everyone else seemed to think that I was a crazy Thomas tried to fix things and win me back, but for a few months afterwards, I never responded to any of his messages. I don't regret it. I simply hope that Arthur, who should be 35 or 36 by now, is well. Edits. I really did not expect so many reactions and comments. As expected, I've seen that not everyone approves what I did, but I am surprised to receive so many kind messages. Thank you. About Thomas's father, he was actually one of the few people understanding my actions. He called me shortly after the incident to discuss an unrelated topic. I was to give him a list of recommendations about something, and was already aware of everything. He did not badmouth his son, but I could really feel that he was disappointed. He simply told me that he had not found sleep the night of Saturday to Sunday because of what he heard during the party. He told me he appreciated meeting me and expressed regret that I was not with his son anymore, but also said that he understood my reasons. He did not try to convince me to get back with Thomas. This man truly was a gentleman. And I don't know what became of Arthur. I don't even know his last name. I think that even if I had known his name, I would not have reached out to him by fear of making him remember things that he probably wants to forget. I hope he is a confident man now, and that he still likes Elmer the elephant. I feel like this is up to you, fellow viewers, as to if you agree or not, if she did a good thing or a bad thing. I mean, she did a bad thing in response to a bad thing, right? I have to say, I kind of side with her, right? A little petty revenge. You know, Reddit likes some of that stuff. But I can understand, be like, hey, that's a little much, right? But also, he had the opportunity to be like, well, I regret it now. But as they say, drunk words are sober thoughts. So even as an adult, he probably didn't regret it. He doesn't. Anyway, next story. Story number 3. My wife is not the woman I used to know. She let the fame get to her. I know I probably won't get anything meaningful from Reddit, but at this stage of life, I don't have a single soul to talk to. I met my wife when I was 15 in high school. She was 17. That latter part of my teenage years was probably the hardest of my life, since in half a year I lost my mother. Never knew my dad, so she was the only thing I could consider family. At the time, me and my wife were only friends, but she was there for me and grieved with me. I think I started developing feelings for her during that time too. We started dating when I was 17 and we got married 7 years later. For context, my wife was very frugal and unmaterialistic. She never cared about clothes, makeup, brands, cars, etc. Always spending money on thrift shops or during sales on whatever she liked. I remember trying to impress her with my 370Z just for her to react with, "What car is this? A Corolla?" So yeah, I think you get the type. But that's what I liked about her the most. And also, she was the most caring person I ever knew. In our family, she's the successful one, always working in big corporations. Regarding myself, I always worked as a community first responder for my local hospital. The salary wasn't high, but I loved my job, helping people as I could. Fast forward 2 years ago, she received an offer from an important company for an executive position, offering 4 times her salary. And let me tell you, her salary wasn't bad by any means. But we would have to move to a different city. At first, I was doubtful, since that would mean losing my job, and I'm not sure if I could have contributed financially to our family for an indefinite time period. But she said that she could have sustained the family effortlessly with this new job. And for the time, I could have looked after the house and groceries till I found a new job. Since she was so enthusiastic, I accepted. I was happy to support my wife's career. Well, the best way I can put this is that my wife underwent a crazy transformation. Some Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde type thing, if you know what I mean. She started caring more and more about luxury brands, jewels, cars, etc. I don't think you can quite imagine my disbelief seeing her coming back home with a Versace bag after seeing her for years wearing $10 coats from our local thrift shop. She also started hanging out with her new female coworkers a lot. My wife isn't very extroverted or very social, so that was quite the shock, but I was very happy for her. I thought that she finally found her dimension after years of struggling, but that happiness started fading until she started coming home way later and later, every day, and later and later, until it was a miracle to be able to talk to her for 10 minutes a day. I thought she was just very busy with work, since, well, being an executive means a lot of work, till she started posting lots of photos of her with her coworkers, drinking, going shopping, and stuff like that. The fun part is, she never finds time to reply to my texts, but she always has a minute to post photos. And when she replies, she says that she's working. She also literally stops saying things to me altogether. Have you ever experienced your wife/husband going to work with an Audi A3 and then coming back home with a Porsche Macan GTS? Well, I did, and let me tell you, it's no fun. I confronted her on it if it was a business-issued car, which it isn't, then on why she spent so much money on a car when she did not care even a little about cars. Her passive-aggressive response was that it's her money and that she's entitled to do as she pleases. Or have you experienced not seeing your wife/husband coming back home for a night and not replying to a text just to receive a call the following afternoon saying that she forgot telling me that she left for a business trip? Well, I hope you haven't. But the worst is when she invited me for lunch with her coworkers. I was very happy because that was the first time we were doing something together in months, and I thought that what I've experienced before was only a phase and that it had all ended. My wife left first because she had work to do, so I dressed up nicely and left 2 hours after to the scheduled restaurant. For context, years before this, I sold my 370Z because I didn't need a sports car anymore. So my daily driver is a very frugal Renault Clio. I like it, and since I didn't need that much, I don't have reasons to upgrade to a pricier model or brand. Well, I get to the restaurant, park my car in front of it, get inside just to see my wife staring at me like she's horror-stricken. She gets up from the table and takes me outside of the restaurant, then proceeds to literally insult me for parking my Clio in front of the restaurant and in front of her table, saying that I embarrassed her and that I should have parked it somewhere hidden. I was completely at a loss for words. I asked her why, and she said that it was a cheap, non-luxury car, not representative of her lifestyle. She then gets back inside the restaurant, warning me not to embarrass her like this again. I attended the rest of the lunch in shock. That day I realized that the girl I had at my side wasn't my wife. It wasn't the girl I married anymore. My wife is now out of the house, celebrating a great year for the company, and I'm here at home writing this with the divorce papers in front of me. I don't think I can handle this situation anymore. I tried lots and lots of times to talk to her, to tell her how I feel, to tell her that she's changed, that she's not the same woman I knew, but she just doesn't listen. She always says that she has no time and that she needs to work, or tries to minimize the situation, saying that it's not true and that she's never changed. She wanted kids. Now she doesn't want them anymore, saying that they would rob her time from her career. She wanted to travel. Now she doesn't want to do it for the same reason. Is she really the same woman I married? But still, I can't bring myself to talk about divorce with her, most likely because I hope that somewhere hidden inside of her, there's still the woman I loved and still love, even if this doesn't seem like the case. Story number 4. I took my fiance home to meet my family and left with no fiance. I, 30F, got engaged in March of this year to E, 31M, that I've been dating for the last 3 years. It was heavenly bliss until I introduced him to my family. We went home to meet my family as it was important to him to get their blessing. I didn't care either way, but I did it to make him happy. Everyone was welcoming of him and seemed genuinely happy for us. Before the trip was over, my eldest brother suggested a sibling/parents camping trip in a cabin up north to bond and get to know my fiance away from our parents. I was reluctant, as I typically didn't spend this much time back home, but eventually agreed. The trip was going well, so I let my guard down and decided to enjoy being in the mountains with my siblings. However, the day before the trip was over, everything changed. My sister and her husband were on their 17th argument of the day, and it was only 11 a.m. Her husband stormed out, and she stayed there just crying. I don't do well with other people's emotions, so I suggested to take a hike to clear everyone's heads. My fiance suggested that us siblings go so that my sister could talk freely if she needed to. I asked if he was sure, and he stated that he'd just check some emails while we were out. Early on the hike, my sister said that she just wanted to go home. I offered to walk her back, but she said she wanted to clear her mind. We continued our hike and she just went back to the cabin. After the hike, my brother and his wife wanted to explore, but I just wanted to shower, so I headed back to the cabin. My sister's car was still outside even though it was a couple hours later in the day. I ignored it and went inside. And then I heard soft moans coming from upstairs, and then a familiar grunt. I went upstairs only to see my fiance and my sister together in the worst way. Something broke inside of me. I took a pic of what I saw, quietly grabbed my things, and left my ring on the counter. I left, sent the picture to the family group chat, and turned my phone off. The next day, I had 47 missed calls from my family and 75 plus texts from my fiance. Apparently, her husband got the text as he was returning to the cabin and wasn't so kind to my fiance. Initially, I felt just terrible in my actions. I hate it, but I did. However, I now know that even though what they did was terrible, what I did was wrong too. Sending that picture to the family chat was gross, and the innocent family members didn't deserve to get dragged into that. My engagement is over. I removed myself from the family group chat, and I haven't spoken to anyone about it since. These last few months have felt just so empty. I just want to move past this now, but I don't know how.